Hi and welcome to our program. Today we are visiting Museum Overtachi and its new premises. So follow me for a tour around the special exhibition Body Ideals, Oppression and Liberation. And you also were supposed to have a conversation today that was cancelled.
Yeah.
And what was it about?
We were supposed to, me and Marie, the other youth ambassador, we were supposed to have it together. And the point of it was to, in the hope of there would be a lot of people there to join in on the conversation, we would start off explaining our own reasons for being part of this project and for doing this exhibition, because we both struggled with body image issues and body issues in general for most of our lives. Obviously won't get too much into hers, but she's, for example, been quite involved in psychiatry and that, whereas I've not at all, but would have told my own story with how I've been struggling with an eating disorder since I was about 10, 11 years old. How that has shaped me, how bad it could have been and how much you went through and how I'm doing today in regards to all of it, and she would have shared hers as well. And then we would have opened up for questions and for other people to share their story as well, if anyone wanted to. Just kind of having an open conversation about what it's like to suffer from body ideals and suffer from the issues and the consequences of how these ideals can affect us as people. And if someone wanted to share their own history with either self-worth issues or eating disorders or whatever, we wanted to create a safe space for that, to have the conversation in its most literal sense.
Then maybe you can share a little bit of what you were going to tell today, if it's okay?
Yeah, of course. I think I remember beginning to have issues with my body around 10 or 11. Because seeing my sister struggled with it as well. Seeing her being sent to the doctor and being forced to write in her diary what she ate every day, and I wasn't sure why she was doing it.
Yeah. How old were you at the time?
I was probably 11 because she was about 13 and a half when she was doing it.
Okay.
And seeing how much she cried about it and how much my parents watched her eat, I was kind of exposed to, why is this an issue? Why is she not eating? Like, it's not my sister's fault at all, but we grew up in a house with a mum who's been on a diet since the day I was born. And every single month it was new diet. I love my mum, no doubt about it at all, but it's hard growing up in a house where everything, food-wise, is about what she can't eat. And how, I'm not allowed to have candy because I'm still fat, and I'm not allowed to do this because I'm fat. I can't wear that because I'm fat. You hear that all the time. Hearing your mum call herself disgusting at the age of 8, you're like, am I supposed to feel disgusting? Am I supposed to hate myself the way you do? And my dad trying his best to make her feel good by buying the food she needs to eat and running along with the diets, and us running along with the diets as much as possible as well. Obviously our dad wouldn't, or my mum would force us to eat dietary in that sense, but it's going to affect you.
Of course.
If you grow up in a house where the norm is to hate yourself, you're gonna hate yourself. And I think around the day I got confirmated, that's when it really started to get bad, because everyone else was looking so pretty and skinny and pure in their white dresses in the church, and I had to get mine special sewn because I couldn't fit anything in the stores. And the designer we had constantly made comments about us that, oh, we have to sew it out again, it's going to break again.
Cause kind of put a pressure on you.
Yeah, putting that, like, constantly commenting on the fact that I was bigger than everyone else. And I already knew that because my puberty started when I was 8, where I got a size B bra at the age of 8.
Yeah.
So the whole being bigger than everyone else started from a very early age, and having everyone comment on the fact that you have breasts at the age of 8 and 9 and 10, being bullied with it by the other girls, having the boys comment on it, do whatever they could to, like, look down my shirt and all that. But during my confirmation in the church, my dress broke down the side. And that's really when I think it snapped for me. And I was sitting there at the party where everyone was commenting on how much food there was, and I was given like a massive bowl of sweets as part of my present, where I was like, this is how people view me, as someone who just scoffs everything down their mouth. And then I started starving myself, and if I ate too much I threw up, really just going full shablam at the age of 14.
It's really early.
I think I lost 15, 20 kilos in 3 months. And I became like very skinny, because I wasn't even that big before. I think I was maybe a bit smaller than I am now, and I don't think I'm that big now. But at the age of 13, 14, that's a lot bigger than everyone else, but I wasn't even that big. I was 165 tall, the same as I am now. But I felt like I was massive compared to everyone else.
Yeah.
And then suddenly everyone was commenting on how good I looked and how skinny I'd become and how great that was. And I was getting compliments that I had never gotten in my life before. No one called me pretty before, no one flirted with me, and suddenly I got attention. I moved to Edinburgh for a year as an exchange student, where I suddenly got so much attention. Like, all of the boys were talking to me and were like, oh, you're really cute and this and that. Attention I had never had before, besides the fact that I had big breasts at a young age. And that just confirmed for me that I was doing the right thing by starving myself, because that meant I was pretty, finally.
Yeah.
But it was never enough, because I always felt like I was bigger than everyone else. So it just continued quite badly. I got to a point where people stopped commenting on how pretty I looked and started saying, you look ill, you look sick. But I'd hid it from my parents at home. But when I went over to Edinburgh, I had quite a few experiences with the first household I lived in, host parent. They starved us when we didn't follow the rules. Like, they put a plate out where the breakfast was supposed to be, but an empty plate.
Who did this?
My host mother, when I was on exchange in Edinburgh. And I was like, for me that was easy, because I'd been used to doing that to myself, but we got severely
that's not right.
ill, all of us, because I think I went a couple of days without food at one point, because she wouldn't give us any, and I didn't want to ask my parents for money to buy food, because in my head I was like, I probably deserve this, all that. Like, it got terrible.
Yeah.
And while I was over there, I got a boyfriend. We got moved from the house as well, so we became okay. But I got a boyfriend who was constantly worried about me, but he was also constantly saying how pretty I was. So it was quite conflicting in that sense, like, well, you like this body, but you don't like the way I got this body. Like, nothing I could do was ever good enough. And I think it never really got better. I tried my best for the people around me, because the people who loved me, I didn't want to hurt them with the fact that I wasn't doing good.
Yeah.
But I also didn't want to be doing good, because I was pretty when I was skinny. And then when I came back home to Denmark and started gymnasium, where I met one of my very good friends. And I found out he had the same issue. He always had a toothbrush in his bag. And we could talk about it, and it was so weird, because I'd never had anyone to talk about feeling like that before, that didn't judge me and didn't get hurt for me having done that. And suddenly I got happier, and I forgot that I wasn't supposed to eat a bit more, because I was actually able to talk about how I felt. It was a bit toxic as well, in the sense that we were okaying each other's behaviour in a sense, but he stopped doing it, and then suddenly I stopped doing it, replaced it with drinking for a bit. That was also not good. But suddenly I realised that I had not made myself throw up for several months. And it just kind of happened that because I didn't feel like I had to be alone in it, I didn't think about it as much. Like, of course, the thoughts were still there. They're still there to this day, but I think it just gradually became easier to not think about it and try to silence those thoughts. But also having to tell myself constantly, you have to not do this. You can't do this. Because you're gonna gain weight again. Like, I gained a lot of weight again, especially during lockdown. Like, I put on a lot of weight, but I'm okay now. And if you'd asked 16-year-old me if I was going to be okay being the size I am now, she would have broke down crying, like, knowing that I got to this. But I'm actually okay in a sense I never thought I was going to be. And it took so many years, and of course I still have bad days, but it's taken years of opening up to friends and to people and telling them what it was and asking them for help in that sense. I lived in Glasgow for 2 years with my best friend, and she knew when I hadn't eaten, because apparently I couldn't lie to her. So every time she came home from work, she made dinner, and she always made enough for two, and she would sit with me until I'd finished my food, just to make sure I had at least eaten something that day when I was having a bad week. And I think just having that kind of care and making myself realise that I wasn't just hurting myself with it, but I was hurting myself a lot. But it was affecting everyone else around me as well, made me think about, okay, I need to get better. I need to not be like this anymore, because I'm going to break down. At one point, I'm going to stop working. If I keep being too skinny, if I keep starving myself, I'm going to die at some point. And I can't do that to my parent. I can't do that to my friends. And of course, it doesn't have to come out to that point for everyone, but just having that thought of, what am I going to miss out on because I hate myself? Am I going to not go to the beach with my friends and have the greatest time of my life because I hate myself in a bathing suit? Or am I going to go and maybe just not swim this time? And then maybe I'll swim next time. Am I going to not go on the night out with my friends and get to meet new people and start a new education or what, because I hate myself? I'm going to miss out on living because I hate myself, when living is what made me not hate myself. It's always been in the relation with other people that I've found the will to try to stop hating myself, and in being able to talk about the fact that I used to hate myself with people who understood, and people who were there for me in the sense that we don't want you to die, we don't want you to hate yourself, we want you to love you as much as we do. That I really kicked myself in the ass and kind of went, okay, you may not be able to get rid of the thoughts, but you're going to have to find a way to make them quiet, or at least quieter, turn down the volume, eat a fucking pizza.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, what's the alternative? Dying? I don't want to do that. So you just, at one point, you have to kick yourself in the ass, because the only one who's going to do it is yourself.
Yeah.
No one can do it for you, they can help you, but not until you ask for help, kind of thing.
Yeah, I was going to ask now, like, what do you think that could have helped you, like, before?
I think if I had opened up about it before, I could have gotten the help I needed before. I've always been very much, I'll deal with it myself kind of thing. With everything in my life. It's like, fine, I can do it myself, I can figure it out myself, because I don't want to burden anyone. But realizing that every single burden I put on myself, it adds up, and not being able to give any of that away makes you deal with it completely on your own, and that's going to just make you collapse at one point. But giving away some of that burden, and if I'd been able to do that earlier, if I had been able to communicate with the people I loved that something was wrong, it might not have gotten as bad as it did, and I might have been able to get better before, and might have been able to be better now than I am, because it's such a long process, and it's a continuous process for the rest of your life for most people, but it just makes it so much easier if you've got someone to hold your hand and support your back.
Yeah.
So if I'd done that earlier, I probably would have been better sooner.
This Gen Z generation, like they grew up with internet and this body ideals, like they're very present for a very early age, from a very early age. And how do you think that our digital presence, like nowadays, can affect this body ideals, that like our relationship with our body, like our identity?
I think it's quite a terrible thing, to be honest, because the internet I grew up with in the noughties, that was the anorectic model body ideal, and that's all we saw. It's the globalization of body image. It was not just what we saw in our everyday life, it was seeing everyone around the world and seeing how beautiful everyone else could be. And it's always a fake beauty, or it's always a forced beauty in that sense. Like an Instagram influencer, of course she's beautiful, but there's also filtering, there's also editing, there's also, here's my good angle. Here's exactly the view that makes my butt look big but my waist look small, when in reality I'm box shaped, which is fine as well. All of it's curated to look the best way possible. The same way when you go into a museum, nothing is by random. Everything is curated exactly to look perfect. And I grew up seeing that as well. And I grew up thinking everyone was more beautiful and more skinny than me. And Gen Z's growing up with the same, luckily not as skinny now as they used to be, but they're growing up with the fitness influencers that work out every day and eat nothing but kale salad, and you're supposed to eat an iceberg lettuce burrito, and I'm this skinny but my ass is this big, and there's nothing wrong with the way they look, but it's capitalism more than anything. They are selling products, even if they themselves are the products, and they're using the beauty standards to sell that product. And it's harming the way everyone looks at themselves. Like, that's been a big part of my body image as well. It's the globalization of that unhealthy and that fake body ideal. But I think the positive part of it is that the same sort of liberation is happening online as well. That now they can't just see those bodies, those very perfect bodies. They see everyone else as well. Because there's a new movement on its way, like coming, of so many videos of people like, this is what I look like with a filter, this is me without it. And it's become illegal now to, I think it's in one of the Scandinavian countries, it's illegal to post commercials without telling people it's edited. So people have to be told when something's edited, and that's such a positive movement, because the other things had so many consequences of how we view ourselves, because that's created a globalized body ideal beauty standard of the white skinny with the big butt and the big boobs. But they're not supposed to be too big, and your butt's not supposed to be too big, but your waist has to be tiny. No one looks like that. Well, some people look like that. Great for them.
But no, not everybody
we don't
needs...
look like that in general, and
Yeah.
we don't have to look like that.
Exactly.
And now we've got everyone being able to say, no, we don't look like that. And famous people are starting to like make movements against Jamila Jamil, a British actor. Her entire Instagram is devoted to exposing people who use Instagram as a platform for diet culture. And Lizzo is, you know, being Lizzo in her greatest sense. Billie Eilish is stepping up and saying, I don't want to be a part of that. The reason I don't wear tight clothes is because you over-sexualize me, and the fact that I'm 18. Everyone is beginning to see like the breaking down of that body ideal and showing more bodies, and that's the great part of the globalization of the internet. We get to see everyone. Whereas before we got to see one person we thought was everyone. But now we're getting to see actually everyone. And more actresses are being taken serious despite the fact that they're fat. They're getting to be other people than Fat Amy or Melissa McCarthy, that's always just the identity thief or the funny person because she's fat. It's changing the way society is shaped, that we are allowing body images of all shapes and sizes to be seen. And I think that's a positive consequence as well. But the whole Kardashian internet culture is obviously still there.
Yeah, and
But
very big.
Yeah, very big. And people are still constantly seeing that. And if they aren't aware of the other people on the internet that are saying no to these things, then all they're going to see is still the Kardashian ideal. And it's still going to affect them. So it has so many so many negative consequences.
It's
Like
okay.
the entire thing without swearing, and here it comes. But I think the movement is coming that's going to tear it down. At least I hope it is. And I think Gen Z is a big part of that. Because they're the ones saying, fuck this, sorry.
It's okay.
They're the ones saying no. They're the ones making it possible, because I'm not really Gen Z, I'm not really millennial. I'm like
In between.
Yeah, because I'm from 97, so I'm literally stuck in between the two. I was there when the internet became a thing, but I'm also young enough to be a part of the way the internet is now, and I'm just blown away by the way that the Gen Z uses it to promote things and to talk about things in a way that we were never able to do when the internet came to us. Like, I just think it's a beautiful thing, and I hope they escape the consequences that at least I've had to suffer from the internet and the body ideals that are shaped on there. Not sitting on Tumblr under the anorexia hashtag and seeing fat shaming and bullying, and like there's movies about all of it as well, like Thinspiration and all that. Like how the internet was a massive resource for self-hatred for me. And it's out there as well, but I haven't seen it in the newer generations. And I hope they get to not be a part of that.
Yes, let's hope so too. that was it for today. Thank you so much for staying with us. We hope you enjoyed this program as much as we did. See you next time.
Kunne du tænke dig at lave dit eget radioprogram? Kunne du tænke dig at lave dit eget radioprogram? Kunne du tænke dig at lave dit eget radioprogram? Kunne du tænke dig at lave dit eget radioprogram? Bliv frivillig radiovært i Radiohuset Aarhus.
Ungdomsradio.